Can you recall the names of people who have helped you in the past? Have you done anything to return their favor? Or are you just someone who lets this go by, failing to think of any measure that can match their help and effort? The influence of reciprocity is quite broad, acknowledging that individuals feel obligated to give back to others after receiving first. This can lead to misunderstanding, which is why today I'm going to narrow it down for you, referring to generalized reciprocity as a whole. Throughout the speech, I will be referring to Dr. Robert B. Cialdini's work in regards to his influence on the psychology of persuasion. I will also be referring to anthropologist Marshall Solins, along with archives from the Colleges of Arts and Sciences and other published books. So let's say your friend brings you a cup of coffee before you shop at the mall. You may return the favor in a similar future scenario. So reciprocity is an overlooked concept that is handled daily, since almost all humans live in some type of society where we have at least a few possessions. Generalized reciprocity is common to every culture. So during this speech, we are going to discuss the observations of generalized reciprocity and what exactly this is, along with other examples of this principle being used in both Western and non-Western societies, focusing on and highlighting the differences between societal norms, and lastly, the societal advantages gained from this rule. Now let's begin with what the term generalized reciprocity implies. So the term reciprocity is derived from the Latin word reciprocus, which means alternating. So what is generalized reciprocity? Well, in 1965, Marshall Solins observed that generalized reciprocity is the gift giving without the expectation of immediate return. Generalized reciprocity occurs when one person shares goods or labor with another person without the expectation of a return immediately following. This refers to the altruistic transactions, the true gift marked by the weak reciprocity, which is due to the vagueness of the obligation to reciprocate. These transactions are based on the assumption that all exchanges will eventually equal out. So generalized reciprocity is the same as virtually uninhibited sharing or giving. This is seen when an individual shares something of value to another individual without expecting anything in return. Liviu Andrew, Book of the Money and Market and the Economy of All Times, published in London, UK by Exilibris in 2011, notes that what makes these interactions reciprocal is the sense of the satisfaction that the giver feels and the social closeness that the gift fosters. Furthermore, those who engage in generalized reciprocity hold a maximum amount of trust and a minimum amount of social distance. The principle of reciprocity also highlights that if someone does something for us, we generally feel the need to repay the favor or the debt. Professor Dr. Robert Cialdini at Arizona State University and author of the revised edition of Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, originally published in 1984, indicates that our natural human behavior dictates that if someone gives something to us, we feel obligated to repay the debt. Now, this is where reciprocity and generalized reciprocity differ. The exchange of equally valuable goods is repressed by the social side, and the summation of debts is avoided, since the return for the gift remains undefined but is also not determined by quantity or quality. So generalized reciprocity is the selfless act of gift giving without expecting something immediately in return. Now let's discuss generalized reciprocity across the world. Do you practice generalized reciprocity? Well, let's find that out. This practice of generalized reciprocity is seen among all societies. Non-Western societies practice this exchange and transaction on a wide scale. In the Colleges of Arts and Sciences in 2018 archives, according to the article Peaceful Societies, an article I accessed on November 9th, written by the Department of Anthropology, refers to the Orange Al-Salai Society, the Semi, living in Malaysia, and how they practice generalized reciprocity amongst their community life, family, and in further stages, large clans. This practice allows them to exchange meats, weapons, etc., without having any measurements of what the exact value of what they traded is, assuming that the transaction will reach equilibrium in the future. So for the Semi community, this is a formal way of exchange, which involves total trust and minimal distance between the two participants, which promotes peace within their multi-ethnic society. Whereas in Western societies, often only practice generalized reciprocity when it comes to dealing with close family members and friends. It is common for this exchange between family and friends to feel like a form of social security. Sharing with family ensures they're in turn likely to share with you. In these Western societies, giving without the expectation of quick or equal return occurs between parties of a certain social relation, such as married couples, siblings, and even close friends, and many others. So, for example, in North America, parents practice generalized reciprocity by providing their children with vehicles and a college education. So this exchange occurs in all human populations, societies, and nations for various reasons of exchange. I want you to think back to all the times you have given something for nothing gifts. Human societies acquire a significant advantage from the reciprocity rule. Generalized reciprocity is in fact referred to as a vital principle of society. This practice allows for social equilibrium and cohesion to exist. The revised 2006 edition of the Handbook of Economics of Giving, Altruism, and Reciprocity, published in Amsterdam, explains authors Serge Colm and French economist Jean Yiffer, professor at University of Paris, speakings of the reciprocal change. Colm and Yiffer explain how this exchange is enclosed in a full system of expectations and sanctions, which is also referred to as internal obligations, where effectivity plays an important role. What this means is that failure to comply with these rules has the potential to place an individual in an intolerable position, which can cause social disruptions in communities, especially among a family context. To opt out isn't often an acceptable option, where group survival is a decisive issue. So generalized reciprocity is emphasized as an imperative to all relations of primitive life, but still rests at the basis of all societies today. The giving of benefits to another in exchange for an eventual return of something considered equal is a defining feature of social exchange as well as of social life. Sociologists like George Simmel and Howard Becker suggest that we are hardwired for this principle, which helps assure that people help others who have helped them in the past. The principle of generalized reciprocity is vital as it is pertinent for the cooperation in society. In summary, generalized reciprocity is one of the three distinctive types of reciprocity, which is the gift giving without the expectation of immediate return. We furthered our understanding of engaging in generalized reciprocity as being an exchange transaction with the assumption that it eventually balances out, referring to the interaction as a social closeness. We also determined that generalized reciprocity is practiced around the world in both Western and non-Western societies, for various reasons of exchange. Furthermore, we examine the social importance of this principle and that without it, cohesion would cease to exist. Now that you know the importance of generalized reciprocity across the entire human race, my question to you is, are you going to neglect this practice? If so, philanthropist Samuel Johnson puts it this way: life cannot subsist in society but by reciprocal concessions. Thank you.